Okay, so in this video, it's time to start our new Django project. So we can see we're in our virtual environment. We're in our code Django project directory. If we ls, there's nothing else in there. So to create a project in Django, we just type in django-admin.py and then a space and then start project, all one word, and then name the project. And let's see, what do we want to call our project? It really doesn't matter. Let's just call it my site and then a period at the end. That just tells us to install it right here, wherever we are. So if we hit enter, boom, that's it. So now if we ls, we can see there's all this stuff in here. There's this my site directory and this manage.py. You're going to become very familiar with this manage.py file. We're going to use it for everything. Basically what it does is it lets us run commands in Django, and this will become clear very soon as we go forward. So now we can go to our Sublime Text editor and open up our project, go to projects, add folder to project, and we just now need to navigate to that directory we were just in. So go to C, code Django project, and then my site. And you can just click it and highlight it and then click this select folder. And you can see boom, 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 it adds all the files that are in that folder. So you can see there's not a whole lot going on right here. We've got this settings.py, this urls.py, this wsgi.py, and this init.py. Now all the folders in Django come with this init.py, and it's just a blank file. There's nothing in it. It just tells Django, hey, there's stuff in this folder, do stuff, right? So we can ignore that. The settings.py is actually very important, and there's all the settings for our app. You can see there's a lot of stuff in here. I'm not going to go through here and explain all these step by step. I'll talk about them from time to time as we need to use different parts of this and as we need to add things to it. But for now, there's no need to overwhelm yourself with this stuff. We can just sort of ignore it. urls.py, this allows us to create website addresses. So www.whatever.com/about-me, right? That's how you create the /about-me part, right? www.mysite.com/contact-me. If you want to create that contact me URL, you do it right here. So this is actually kind of confusing to new people, so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this in an upcoming video, but this is where a lot of that stuff happens. And this WSGI, that does some stuff behind the scenes that we don't care about. So right off the bat, not a whole lot going on right here, but very, very cool. So in the next video, we'll fire this thing up and take a look at it in the web browser. Okay, so we've got our Sublime Text open. We've got our project. Now you can save this project as if you want to, but you don't really need to save it. The files will all be saved on their own just throughout the course of working on them. But you can save the project if you want, and then you can open the project again later. Or you could just open Sublime again later on and just add the folder to the project like we just did, and all the stuff will pop up. So either way, it doesn't really matter. So we've got our project, not a whole lot going on right here, but we want to fire this thing up and take a look at it in our web browser. So head back over to our PowerShell and type in Python managed.py and then run server. So Django comes with a very, very lightweight web server, and it's just for development purposes. It allows us to run our code in our local web browser and see that everything's working correctly. This is not something you're going to push into production on like a professional web hosting service somewhere, right? You're going to use Apache or some other professional web server, but just for working on code on our computer, it works fantastically well. So Python manage.py run server, and you can see, boom, it fires it up. And we get this error, 14 unapplied migrations. You're always going to see that the first time you run it. That's just a Django thing. I'll talk about it in just a minute. But we can see our website is now running at this URL, 127.0.0.1:8000. And the 8000 is a port. It's port number 8000. And this 127 thing, that is the numerical value of something called localhost. So we can type this whole string into our web browser and our website will come up, or we could just type in localhost:8000. and the thing will come up. So that's what I'm going to do. So open up your browser and just go to localhost:8000. And when you do that, boom, we get this cool little Django default page. It says, hey, the installation worked and everything is great. So not a whole lot going on here, but at least this shows us that the installation worked correctly and all is well in the universe. So if we pull our PowerShell back up, we can see the server is running now in this PowerShell. So we can't do anything else in this PowerShell while the server is running. So if we want to issue other commands, and we do, we should open up another PowerShell. So I'm just going to go to my Windows Start menu, type in PowerShell again. We don't have to run it as administrator anymore. That was just the very first time. So now navigate back to our C/code folder, and let's see, then navigate into our Django project And let's turn on our virtual environment. So that's, actually we need to go back a directory into our code file. So now we can type that scripts.activate command. You notice this time I did backslashes, doesn't matter. Now we cd into our Django project. Okay, now we're good to go. What you want to do is make sure you're in the directory of this manage.py file, because we're going to be calling that file all the time from now on. Anytime we want to issue a command, basically in Django, we type in that Python manage.py and then, you know, whatever command, run server, you know, whatever. So we're going to use that a lot going forward. Okay, so we're pretty much good to go. In the next video, I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about this unapplied migrations thing. It's not really that important, but I should at least mention it. And like I said, we're not going to talk about database stuff in this course, and this is a database thing, but I'll just sort of touch on it very, very quickly, just so you know what it is and how to get rid of it. So 14 unapplied migrations error that we get when we run the server for the first time. So this is a database thing, and like I said earlier, we're not going to get into database stuff in this course, but right out of the box, Django comes with a bunch of database stuff by default, and that's what this is. So when you talk about databases, there's usually two parts. There's a migration and the database itself, and they go hand in hand. And without getting into the technical stuff, because we don't want to talk about that in this course, whenever you want to put something in a database, you first have to create a migration to tell it what you're putting in there, and then you push that migration into the database. So there's two parts. It's a two-part process. You create a migration, push the migration. So that's what you always do with databases. We're not going to do that in this course, but these are just the default migration things that come with Django, and it's asking you to push them into the database. So we can do that just to get rid of this error, and that's what we're going to do in this video very quickly. So head back over to our other PowerShell here. So we just type in Python manage.py as we always do, and then migrate. So it's pushing all 14 of those migrations into the database, and boom, done. So that's really all we have to do to get rid of that error. So now if you ever run the server again, you're not going to get that little migration error thing. Not a big deal. It's not important at all, but I just thought I would sort of mention it to give you a heads up. In the future, as you learn database stuff, those sorts of things become important, but in this course, we're not going to deal with that. So sort of hand in hand with that, if we go to our urls.py, we see this admin thing, and that's creating a URL in our project. And if we go to our website here and type /admin, we get this login thing, right? What is going on here? Well, this is what those migrations that we just pushed created, this admin screen. And Django has an administration area, and we could take a look at it real quick right now. But before we do that, we have to create a username and a login. So head back to our PowerShell and type in Python manage.py, as always. We don't really care what's in manage.py. This is all we're ever going to use it for, just to do these commands. So like I said, get used to doing that. So to create a username for the admin area, you just type in create super user, all one word. And it asks you to spell out what your username is. So I'm just going to type in admin, and then it asks for an email address, no@no.com, and a password. Type in anything. I'm not putting a secure password in just because we don't really care right now. If you were creating a real website for the real world, you would use a very secure, long password with lots of weird characters, but we don't really care right now. So now we're good to go. So if we head back to the website, we can type in that password, or that username and that password, and then boom, we go into the Django administration area. So this is actually very cool. We're not going to get into this in this course because this all has to deal with database stuff, but we can click users, for instance, and here's our user that we just created. Here's an email address, and we can click on this and make changes if we want. We can change it here, add first name, last name, change our email address, do all kinds of cool stuff. And this is just the Django administration area. So if we created a database, so let's say we have products to sell, and so we created a database table that has all of our product names. Well, we could look at that right here. And, you know, if we wanted to change one of the names of our project or one of the names of our products in the database, we could do that right here. So it's a real handy little tool. Some people use it a lot, some people don't use it at all. Like I said, in this course, we're not going to be doing database stuff, so we're not going to use it at all. But I just wanted to show it to you because it's sort of a basic thing that comes with Django. And in the future, you'll learn how to use this as you learn more about Django and as you use database stuff more. But that's not for this course. Like I said earlier, this is just a very basic course to get us up and running and learn the basics of Django. So I think we're pretty much good to go. In the next video, we're going to start to create the actual website and change it from, let's see, go back to our home page, change it from this default screen to whatever we want. Now it's time to build out our website and get rid of this default page. And before we do that, I noticed one little error mistake we made earlier. This folder here, My Site, we actually need one directory above this to be showing up here. Just a quick little mistake. So I'm gonna go ahead and click New Window, and I'm just gonna close this old one. And I'm gonna go over to Project, Add Folder to Project, and just navigate back to that same directory, C code. And what we want is this Django project. Remember, we created this way back a few videos ago. Last time we clicked on this one, that was wrong. I don't know why I did that. Wasn't thinking. We want this Django project. So click that. Now it has this top level folder. It doesn't matter what this thing is called, like I said earlier, but we need it to be there because we're gonna make some changes now and we'll see that. So next we need to start to add out functionality to our website. So Django has something called apps. And this is a term that's a little confusing to people because when you think of an app, you think of like, oh, an app on my phone, or oh, an iPad app or something like that. That's not what this is in Django. In Django, an app is just a thing, right? It's just a thing. And you're gonna add lots of things to your project, right? So an app deals with one thing and one thing only. So for instance, we're gonna create an app to deal with our web pages. If your website has a message board, you'll create an app for that message board. If your website has some other sort of forum, you'll create an app for your forum. Anytime you want to add something to your project, you create an app for it. That's all it means. They really should have named it something else because apps, we use the word app for everything these days. There's web apps, there's phone apps, it's a little confusing, but just think of them as things. Whenever you want to add something to your project, you create an app for it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So head back over to our PowerShell, and we are in our Django project folder. There's our manage.py. So anytime we want to create an app, it's very easy. We just Python manage.py as always, and then we type start app, all one word, and then just name it. So this app is going to create web pages, so let's just call it pages. Okay. So now if we come back to our Sublime, boom, this pages directory pops up. That's why we needed to have this Django project at the top level so that we can see new apps as we add them. So you can see it adds it automatically, very cool. And inside of here, there's this migrations folder, and there's nothing in it right now except for this empty init.py file, which is in every directory. Migrations, like I said a couple videos ago, that's a database thing. We don't care anything about that. Here we've got another init.py file. We have this admin file, nothing in there. Apps.py, nothing in there. Models.py, that's also a database thing, nothing in there. Tests allow us to run tests to make sure our code works correctly. We're not going to talk about tests in this course because it's a definitely more advanced thing and we don't really care. Finally, we have this views.py, and this is where we're going to tell our app what pages we have in our program. We'll talk about that very soon. One more thing I want to do very quickly, come up here to pages and right click and create new file. And right up here, I'm going to go file, save as, and let's just call it urls.py. So then you see, boom, it shows up right there. And I'm just gonna leave it empty for now, we can close it. But this urls.py, if we navigate back to our main My Site folder, it also has its urls.py file. And in fact, I can delete all these comments, save this. And like I said earlier, this tells us, this allows us to create URLs for our app. And anytime you create a project, you really wanna put its own urls.py. You can put them all in this file and not do what we just did by adding a new one down here, but it's sort of the common convention to give each project or each app its own urls.py file. And we'll see in a little bit why that's important and why it's a little bit easier to do it that way. But for now, we can just leave it like that. So this is now our new app, and it's just that easy to create it. Now to add stuff to it, it's going to take a little bit of work, but that's all there is really to creating new apps. And anytime you want to add a new app, that's how you do it. Now there's one more thing we have to do very quickly, and that's come back to our main My Site folder and open up our settings.py. And come down here to installed apps, and every time we create a new app, we need to just add it to this list. So it's very easy to do. We just type in the name, and our name is Pages. And you can see right here, this folder is Pages. Whatever this is called, you just type that in right there. So if we save this, boom, we are now good to go. And that's all we need to do there. So we can close the settings.py file and close that file. And okay, so actually, one last thing very quickly, open up our main urls.py file. I'm just gonna copy all of this stuff and then open up our new urls.py file that we just created. I'm just gonna paste it in there, and we can get rid of this admin thing. We don't need that. And we can delete this one because we don't want to do the admin thing. And okay, I'm just gonna save this, and later on we're gonna flesh this out a little bit, but this is just sort of the bare bones what we need going forward in the future. So in the next video, we'll look at the views and we'll start building out our web app.